This was supposed to be Chop Robinson's season. That's how it was framed for months. Every discussion about who might emerge, every article looking for the next name to break through, it pointed toward him. He was the one people circled, the one analysts were certain would step into a new tier. After all, how could anyone ignore the way he closed out his rookie year? 6 sacks, 56 pressures, most of them clustered in that furious stretch over the final 8 weeks. He wasn't just present, he was disruptive, the kind of player who forced defensive lines to recalculate their plans mid-game. The idea of what he could become in year 2 seemed obvious. And yet here we are. The breakout isn't happening. At least not now. Not the way it was drawn up. Through 4 games, the stat line looks empty, almost deflating. 1 sack, 4 pressures. That's it. His snap count keeps falling, like a silent graph trending in the wrong direction. Week 1, he logged 36 snaps. Then down, then further down, until it bottomed out with 20 against the Jets. 20 snaps. That's the fewest since the very beginning, since week 1 of last season when he was just getting his feet wet. Instead of stepping forward, he's sliding backward. What's happening? What's the real reason? That's the part that pulls you in, because the explanations don't line up neatly. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver tried to put some clarity on it, though the more he spoke, the more it sounded like something else. He pointed to Sean Ryan, the senior defensive assistant suddenly thrown into a new role after Ryan Crow was put on leave. Weaver called it a feel thing, as if the whole rotation of edge rushers depended on rhythm, on instinct, on some intangible flow that Ryan is still trying to understand. Weaver insisted that it's about making sure everyone gets reps, making sure nobody loses touch with the rhythm of the game. But here's the problem with that. If Ryan is still settling, if this is all some adjustment, why does he hold full control of the rotation? Why does it sound as if an entire defensive front's snap distribution leans on one man's personal sense of feel? Crow's situation hit back on September 1st. That wasn't yesterday. Shouldn't there have been a system, a plan, something already designed to keep the line consistent? And yet, the way Weaver explained it, it's less about structure, more about vibes. As if rotations depend on a coach's mood more than matchups. How does that make sense when the stakes are this high? Weaver did offer something else, though. Something that explains far more. Robinson's knee. That hit against New England in Week 2 left a mark. He played through it, even returned that night, then went on to face Buffalo the following week, but there was no mistaking it. He didn't move the same. Weaver admitted as much. Said he saw moments where the knee clearly bothered him, especially on that short turnaround before Buffalo. He wasn't whole, and when you're rushing off the edge, a fraction less power, a fraction slower step, it changes everything. But even that doesn't close the loop, because let's not pretend he was lighting things up before the knee flared. Week 1 against the Colts was quiet, too quiet. He wasn't dominating. He wasn't wrecking game plans. He wasn't the storm everyone had forecasted. And then came the injury, layered over an already shaky start. So maybe it's both. A rotation thrown into chaos by coaching changes. An injury that clipped his rhythm. A young player who didn't exactly launch out of the gate, now stumbling under the weight of expectation. Still, there are signs. That Jets game. Yes, it was just 20 snaps, but he squeezed out 3 pressures in that short window. 3. And there was 1 snap, 1 moment, where he had Justin Fields dead to rights, untouched, free lane to the quarterback, only for Fields to slip away at the last second. That's not nothing. That's the kind of play that lingers. If he converts that into a sack, if he plants Fields in the turf, maybe the whole story tilts. Football is cruel like that. 1 step, 1 finish away from flipping a narrative. Instead, it becomes another missed chance, another what if. There's also the Jets' approach to consider. Their offensive line, physical, determined to impose the run, leaning on backs who thrive on power. That's not Robinson's best arena. He's better at chasing, collapsing, bursting off the edge. Against a team determined to hammer inside zones and set a heavy tone, it's natural that his snaps would shrink. Coaches trust bigger, sturdier bodies in that kind of fight. Robinson may not be the liability some assume against the run, but it isn't his calling card either. So what is it really? Why does it feel like his breakout year is slipping away before it begins? Because when you stack all these factors, The picture remains unsettled. A coaching shuffle that hasn't found its balance. An injury that lingers quietly even when he's on the field. A skill set still trying to assert itself against different game scripts. And on top of it all, the shadow of expectation, heavier than any blocker, waiting to crush him if he doesn't deliver. Weaver tried to reassure, insisted Robinson can't be lost in the shuffle, can't be buried. He sees him as disruptive, impactful, someone who still needs to be on the field. But what does that mean if the numbers keep trending down? If we're talking about potential instead of production? At what point does patience turn into concern? And here's the other angle. What does this say about Miami's whole pass rush? Because Robinson isn't just a name on a stat sheet. He's supposed to be part of the solution. He's supposed to be the one who takes pressure off others, who gives this defense another weapon when the game tightens. If he's stuck in neutral, if his snaps are shrinking, doesn't that ripple across the line? Isn't this more than a Chop Robinson problem? Isn't this about a defense trying to figure out who it can trust? The uncomfortable truth is that breakout years don't follow scripts. They don't unfold neatly because analysts wrote them that way. They demand performance, and right now, Robinson is caught somewhere between glimpses and gaps. You can see the flashes. You can feel the potential. But you also see the missed sacks, the dwindling snaps, the quiet stretches. It's a mix that frustrates as much as it teases. This Sunday against Carolina, maybe it changes. Maybe those flashes sharpen into something heavier, something undeniable. Maybe the coaching staff adjusts. Maybe the knee holds up. Maybe the game script tilts toward his strengths. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe we're still left asking why a player built to explode is stuck simmering at the edge of the action. The expectation is still there. That hasn't faded. It's what makes every quiet game feel louder, every dip in snaps feel more dramatic. Because Robinson isn't supposed to be a rotation piece. He isn't supposed to be an afterthought. He's supposed to be the one turning third downs into chaos, the one tilting pockets, the one forcing quarterbacks into mistakes. Right now, he isn't. And that's the story. The real question is how long Miami can wait. How long can the team afford to let this simmer, hoping the breakout comes, while games keep piling up? The schedule doesn't pause. Opponents don't wait for development. If Robinson isn't rising, somebody else has to. That's the reality of this league. Yet, there's still that pull, that feeling that it isn't over. That what we saw last year wasn't an illusion. That the closing burst of his rookie season wasn't just noise, but the glimpse of what he really is. Maybe it's still there, hiding under the knee, under the uncertainty, waiting to break loose again. But until it does, the silence grows louder, and every snap becomes a test. And you start to wonder what's being said behind closed doors. Not in press conferences, not in carefully worded answers, but in the locker room when cameras aren't around. How do veterans look at Robinson right now? Do they see him as the kid still figuring it out, someone they can wait on? Or do they feel the urgency that every snap in this league demands? Because patience in the NFL is rare, almost non-existent. Every player knows windows close fast. If you're not producing, someone else is waiting. Someone else is hungry enough to steal those reps. It's not just about Robinson either. It's about identity. Miami wants to be the kind of defense that dictates games, that forces quarterbacks into panic, that flips momentum with pressure. But can you claim that identity if one of your most promising rushers is fading into a part-time role? Can you build fear into opponents when the guy who was supposed to embody the future of your pass rush isn't on the field enough to matter? And think about the fans. They were sold on the idea of Robinson exploding in year 2. They bought into it because it made sense, because everything pointed that way. They're watching closely, and every time his name goes unmentioned during a broadcast, every time the stat line reads 0, it adds to the frustration. They're asking themselves the same questions. Is it the coaches? Is it the injury? Is it him? Is this what happens when hype gets ahead of reality? Yet there's this tension, this refusal to give up on the idea, because you can still feel it when he's out there. That burst off the line, that raw athleticism, it doesn't disappear just because the box score says one pressure. You can sense it's there, waiting for the right moment. Maybe that's what keeps everyone hooked, what keeps the conversations going, what keeps the doubt from turning into dismissal.